Okay, here we are at Walmart. This is Walmart. You see there's the Walmart symbol. Okay, Walmart's where I got the phone and where I keep getting a lot of these problems here from these people. So you see here, martial law is written as such, of course. And you notice here that in the 8th ordinal, so here's the source statement. Martial law is the source statement. These are the ordinal orders. So here, in the 8th ordinal order, of course, we submit it to atomic code 8 for oxygen on O. Then you won't put the 8 in there. Then, of course, law is at 9, 10, 11, 9, and 11. Law. Which, now if we take this out, the 5, 6, and the 7th ordinal, it's submitted to atomic code, then it's BC, no. But to switch it to Walmart around, then that would become on CB, which you'll see the CB, Cobra for one, in the same triangulation box in just a moment. And you'll see here that you could then, add in, of course, their anal hysteresis looping code, LAN, because N is, of course, number 7 there. Alright, and that would be LAI, that would go to 3, which is in atomic code lithium, Li, and would therefore cue the R to R on for LAI. And now we get the Martian, like Marvin the Martian. You all remember that commercial, Marvin the Martian? What was he going to do? Shoot you with his photon laser gun. And why would they need to shoot you with the photon laser gun? Because they can't shoot you with the ballistic missile because they have no actual case. In fact, all the evidence is against them. They have no actual law, no crime. They just want to sit there and get away with sabotaging you. So that would go, of course, Mars, the Mars family, the Candy family. That was one of the richest billionaires, or earliest billionaire families. So you would come over here, and if you switched it around and read it the opposite way, wall, that's like all these Hebrew codes there. They read from right to left. Then you would take that LAIR out, and of course the Q there, the Martian layer, run. And of course, Martian is supposed to make you think it's something like extraterrestrial, but it's really a code to Marvin the Martian. I'll shoot you with my photon laser gun because you don't have any other crime, no way to actually shoot me with anything else, no legitimate crime that actually establishes anything. So there's the triangulation between subwoofers. This Walmart where I got the phone. Subwoofers, amplifiers, Jensen. You'll notice here. See it says voice activation button. That means it has the same kind of microprocessing that's in this phone, that's sound activation. Voice is sound activation. And I don't see any, I can't get to them to establish any reference to Dolby. That's pretty interesting. You might say, well, why aren't they sabotaging this video? Because that's what it's all about, them trying to grant it themselves. I'm supposed to be, quote, powerless, unquote. No matter how much evidence I come up with, no one's supposed to do anything about it because it's supposed to be legal. So that's the best I can find. It says D-class technology on this amplifier here. And notice here, this says kicker, which is a domestic violence action, isn't it? To kick someone is a form of domestic violence, a form of abuse. And here, you'll quite obviously see the source kick, source ear, kick ear. There's order 6 there. I'll see that in a minute. And so then that would bring about the etymon kicker. Take this out, because here, if you take the GAN, if you convert this number 6 alphanumerically to the Russian symbol shown in my prior videos over and over again, then you would get, of course, GAN, gain. It's in the gang bang gun that I showed you before, and that of course would convert here to Russian from B and D, and the GAN is B and D, and of course that references low gain and low volume. So high volume, low gain, you turn the gain down on an amplifier and turn the volume all the way up, and it becomes a whisper, very low volumes. And then, of course, the NG and the gang there comes down NJK spark plugs, which is a spark plug. That's electrocution. That's electrolysis animator, electrical spark animator. The NJK spark plugs used to be when I was in the automotive industry and parts counter at Lee's Auto Parts. We sold NJK spark plugs. And then, of course, if we took that 6G, whichever you want an alphanumeric conversion, and put it at 6, then you get the CB. Oh, and then it would be CB and D too. Like. And notice here RCA as well in triangulation. RCA is out of Indiana. That's BMV with the DMV. They tried to make it so I couldn't have. Okay, so it's RCA Stadium. It's Indianapolis, Indiana. It used to be the Colt Stadium. It became Luke Oil, which is, of course, then another DMV or a motor vehicle triangulation. Luke Oil, quite obviously, goes for the oils. But it used to be RCA Stadium, Indianapolis, Indiana. That puts Eli Lilly in the pharmacy with triangulation with every single Walmart across country, and that equals the BMV, which in Indiana it's called the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. The lights are not supposed to listen to them. Oh, and notice the triangulation here to CBs too, and the code on that grid. Okay, it doesn't take a genius to figure out here. And all you would have to do, of course, is Cobra. Ordinarily order the source statement Cobra and put the R on in there. You know, like this R on. B&D layers. The B&D layer of Walmart there. And then you would get the apposition gate IN, which is short for Indiana for one, and you would get Cobain, like Cobain. Notice that the R here is in the fourth ordinal, which then alphanumerically, or IUPAC periodic table of elements converts to BE. It's right there, number 4. And that is, then I have the apposition gate at IT, B at IT, beat it. And that's a Michael Jackson song, isn't it? And that's a triangulation with the music industry. Somebody who was very, very, I don't know if you would say successful or saboteur, and who had a sister named Janet too, actually. And whose brother then was a part of the whole American Idol, which I've already shown in my past videos, and No Idols and all that stuff, because it's quite easily to see then if you put the R back in there and then switch the IN around, then it would be Brian, wouldn't it? And here's a musician who was considered very successful and accused numerous times by numerous people of pedophilia, and nothing happened. But that's interesting, because there would be a racist triangulation through like the NAACP to the Jello sponsor, Bill Cosby, was also accused of rape using chemicals, and this would then also be Johnson, could be that, Eli Lilly, E-L, oh, and then of course the J-Lo. And now listen to the background, you can hear music. Notice it's not my music. And that background music, being decades old music now, not my music, goes to show motive. Here's the triangulation of Eli Lilly, which is in Indianapolis. That's the BMV. They got Eli Lilly products in there. And you'll see here, Johnson Johnson Company, Skillman, New Jersey. Skillman is actually right there in Middlesex County on the edge of Middlesex and Somerset. Right by the Eli Lilly triangulation. That's BMV, DMV, B&D. Okay, and so then here you can see then in New Jersey, that's the DMV. So in Indiana, BMV, Bureau of Motor Vehicles, New Jersey, DMV. That's your B&D there. Same B&D as that converts into gain, low gain, high frequency, CBs. And then bondage and discipline, and that would then go for the Johnson & Johnson products, all in Walmart. So Woody Johnson, who owns the Jets, which interestingly is That's in New Jersey with the New Jersey Devil emulation, and of course you would take the GAS US. That's Indiana J on ES in the US. Indiana Jones. That was another one of their encryptions of code terms, code etymologies. Their anticipatory nuisance. Marcos Doctrine, anticipatory nuisance encryption of their confession. And of course, in the New Jersey Devils, USAT, they get the Jets there. And then you would, of course, on O, and then they would go to Jensen. Then you would on O, the converts to on O, and that would be NEO, as in Neil backwards, like Neil Anderson. So, in New Jersey, PNC is one of their art centers, their big stadiums, and it can be shown that P and R convert to Russian. Show that in a second. Here. The Russian here is it right here. That's Russian. There's the P conversion to the R. So that's, then of course you would need a renin, which is a blood term, like Bloods and Crips maybe. Is that Black Gang for one? So anyways, if we take these two together here, RC, drop the apposition gate A, and PNC, line them up, of course, CNC as in like cancer, I guess. C and C or C Nancy, whatever. So CNC, then you would get PR and ion, NC, and then E to N, which of course this E to N can be schematically drawn to show a loop, like the loops in the ink and the chemical molecular bonds, right to the C and N there. And we could even make symbols and make it official looking like they do. Like there's the ground symbol, it grounds out to that. There's the symbol for ground, it grounds out to that. Here's a split, which means to add the apposition gate back in there. And in reverse flow, it means to combine the two into one fricative set, Jensen, which is in the stereo. And that's all these triangulations of these products here. So here you can see on the dollar bill, the pyramid, which is associated to the Pyramid of Egypt, although there's pyramids in South America. And we know it goes with the Pyramid of Egypt, which is a Sphinx. We can bring it in by written it this way, S. Then of course using that Hebrew meme here, which is right there, the Hebrew meme converts to M. That becomes M and M, or S and M. This H here, which is right here, backwards, reverse, and parity becomes T. This Y here, the sad he in Hebrew converts to S. That's S and M, TS. Then of course we use this apposition gate renin, which we'll get to, and then this would convert to the leaf in Hebrew to A, as in TSA, which I've shown in prior videos in relation to sex. So if we come down here and we add this filter, this hysteresis looping filter that runs off of this whole code, the slid in the atomic periodic table set up a child anal canal, in the ear canal, which is runs analgesic. We get to dropping this all down here, and I'll show you in a minute. You get the word anaphylaxis, which here, according to the glossary in zoology, integrated principle of zoology, means a systemic, whole body, immediate hypersensitivity reaction. So we show here that in order to get that here, you have to drop in this apposition gate here in slot number 17, which right here 17 is CL. And you have packed periodic table, and you would have to take this C and this L out of NL to get the ANA, prefix. And so that would drop the 6th, 7th, and 8th ordinal order into the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, which all then subtract to 555, which is the number they used to use in movies for phone numbers. 555 this, 555 that. If you were from the 1980s, you would remember 555. It was always on television and in movies. 555 were the first three numbers in the movies. And here they would all drop down 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Down to 9, subtract to 9, and end at 9, 11 in the 20th position here. Okay, so anaphylaxis. Remember, now see the item sonus, anaphylaxis is item sonus, as in the term anaphylaxis. A systemic whole body immediate hypersensitivity reaction, quite obviously. Exteroceptor. A sense organ excited by stimuli from the external world may be the proximate cause of anaphylaxis. So let's take a look at that. We quite obviously see the anal, the sex. That one could go to steroid. So we get here a sex stereoreceptor. Now if we take these down here and you drop these to extoreceptor, conveniently, from the anal, that leaves A, S, S, that's like anal, that's a S, S, and then we would have to take the E, R, E out, and that would be like EAR. If we drop the apposition gate, there's the E, and there's the EAR, there's the anal, there's the ASS, and you get exteroceptor. Now, if you take these ordinal orders up here, and you subtract the metric order, then you get 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 6, 6, 6. Oh, that's interesting, because you know, like that, because that would be SEP2R. That would be like price, I guess. 6, 6, 6, 6, all that. So then one could say that you could then again ordinally order these so that 2, 3, 4, then goes to 5, then to 6, then there would need to be a 7 and an 8 and a 9 to fill the sequence. Now I could cut these and draw all kinds of schematic things to make it look official, but I mean it pretty much tells itself that this is beginning to show accumulative evidence to establish intent. Mens rea, premeditation of intending to cause the whole system hypersensitivity reactions from the stimuli of an external world in relation to stereo, sex, receptors, ears, canals, and anaphylaxis. So the relationship here to Sphinx, then here the stripes, as in stripe or sex. That's pretty interesting. So now we come over here and we see this LAS there that seemed to do nothing here between the 9 and the 13th position. Remember that 9 is in atomic code is fluorine, and 13 is aluminum. So the ordinal order is up here, 9 to 13, and this, well, actually 12 here, so that's FMG. That would be magnesium, manganese. There it is, 12. So that's 9 through 12 here. That's the tonemes, or the itinerant now, tonemes LAS. So that would be like AL to S, which would be like aldosterone, which it says here is a hormone that induces kidneys to absorb sodium in water and release potassium, thus increasing blood pressure and volume, or blood volume and pressure, which would be an anaphylactic shock to exoster to exteroreceptor, or stimuli from an outside world, causing anaphylactic shocks, complete system hypersensitivity, causing the rise in blood pressure, the whole system. There's aldosterone. And then we get over here to angiotensin, because remember, here we use renin to decay, renin in 16. Now 16 is S, so that would be another S at AN, wouldn't it? If it's S at AN, renin. And then here we'll see in renin, blood protein formed from interaction of renin and a circulatory liver protein, angiotensin, causing increased blood pressure and stimulating release of aldosterone and ADH. Okay, so remembering the code renin here, we say tensin, we could say that's what N in ten do. That shows, elements, mineral, distribution, electronics, triangulations. This is just the A do LS, LALL do S, and aldosterone, and these itinerants here, LAS. Missing out of this is just accumulating evidence to show that it's intent, absolute intent. Alright, so here it becomes easy to see that the source statements, anger, ear, tension, riot, becomes angiotensin when you recognize that tensin I, so we stopped at the I and took the uno out, of course, that would be uno, and then the apposition form of the Spanish word for one. And then if you take this 15 here and convert it to IUPAC periodic table, there's P, 15, and 7 here, 765, there's 765, and CB, and then of course 3, which is IL, or LI, 3, then you will get, of course, PNC bill, which it could be speculated or inferred that maybe that means it's code for building, PN panic, IA, we would need that in there for the panic, then building, the DUD, which of course is another company that's come into being in the last decade or so. They make trucks like tow trucks, like Rhino, and ING, which is a Dutch bank. ING Bank is a Dutch bank. UD is a trucking company. It's like Rhino, actually, which is like the Echo company that was in South River, New Jersey at one time, which is interesting too, because if you take the RI out of there, you get Echo IR. When you take the H out, which is short for Escherichia coli, which is the sticky method of hairbound corona from Wisconsin University, who came up with a sticky method using echo IRs of the gates of gene sequencing. So then you, of course, would drop these letters out here, EAR, the O here in 15, and there is nothing here in 3 for a reason, because I'll show that in a second, but then you would get the word angiotensin, excuse me. And then, of course, well, not of course, but, and then you could see if you take this, we'd have to add this O in there, 0, because that's a cipher by definition, dictionary definition. An O is a cipher, added 900 AD, supposedly. So it would then on C, this O here, because that's using this code here, which is on CO, or oncogene. Any of a number of genes associated with neoplastic growth, cancer. The gene in the benign state either inactive or performing its normal role, which is cancer, CNC. We just showed that before in these code. Alright. So that would be alphanumerically convert the cipher. It's called a cipher. 0 in English as a scalar, but it's called a cipher in the Webster's Dictionary and other sources. So that would be on CO. That would turn that on to oncogene. And then of course, then that would be in 0. Then 3, you would renin here in 3. So that's renin, which I've already showed here. It's a code term in angiotension, or angiotensin, excuse me. The protein formed from the interaction of renin and circulating liver. And then, of course, it would make this statement, got, you would bring the G down, G, O, T, then bring down the oncogene, the renin, to bring down the A out of 6 here, because that's 2, 6, if you reverse that down, so of course 6 goes in there. Then bingo, which is interesting because drag bingo is a really popular thing down in South Florida. It's called bitchy drag bingo, or bitchy, whatever it means. And it's also a game. And bitchy drag bingo is a game relative to sex industry, B&D and S&M things. And then that would leave the word 9 backwards here in angiotensin. It's pretty interesting that it even works. It's impossible to deny that it even works. Meanwhile, these two appositions here, 3 and 7, are functioned or commanded by this apposition gate function and an I on AL, which is national, of course. It's pronounced national, but as apposition converted to periodic table. There's the I, that's 53. There's the AL, that's 13. I on AL, 53 minus 13 equals 40, which is the alphanumeric conversion to Yo in this Uranus code. Thermometers rape Uranus at an hospital. And there's the HP, pH, as in like Hewlett Packard, and it slid up a child's anal canal. And 40 here is ZR, as in like czar, which is a word they started using after all these conspiracies. ZAR, Z-A-R. There's the ZR. And if you L AI, then you get out lithium, Li and Li, and that would then be 7 and 3, encodes those appositions into there. And then, of course, the angiotensinogen. So one can try and deny the coding in etymology exists. When you look at codes here, you have a clue what's in this code, game codes. It says, focus your smart camera on this code to see how you can instantly score. What happens if I do focus it on there? Does it upload anything or down affects something in the phone, wouldn't it? Quite obviously. So, continue to follow this code here. You see the 10 sin will sanctify this O, adding the cipher 0 there for the O on C or 0 on C, same thing. Circle, circumference of a dot, by the fact that here 10 is in 14. Following periodic table code, there's 14 and there's 10, which produces the word sine, which is a mathematical or geometrical term. And then you would have the on CO for cos, which is another term. Then could follow the apposition GAS here, and it could be expanded to Lagasse actually, and you would notice these two combined here would be lying like a sphinx. So there's another terminology that goes with cos and sine in the tautology of geometrical mathematics, and that's hypotenuse. And that would be like the code term for cannabis. It's adjudicated fact that there have been indictments where pot has been used as a code term for cannabis. There's the EN in use. There's the EN in use, intention. So we could follow the polynomial that h plus y plus p plus o plus t is algebraic vectors, then would go to hypothalamus as well. And that combining these two together, you could get he anal muse and GAM here with the muse, and that's like a game there, and it would be here heel and muse, which means if somebody's stalking you around, attacking you with unconventional weapons and trying to cause hypertension, high blood pressure, they know that using cannabis would heal the muse. And of course that would be the muse, of course, that they leash is muse and stimulate the IU pack code here that's in my prior video. 6 plus 16 equals 22. Then 23 minus 53 is equal to 8 plus 22, which is 30. And that would be the last ion. And that's what Obama here is the FOP making. If the PAV, that's the PAV prior to the VIOL metathesis, the LOVI and Pavlovian. Stimulate violent Pavlovian response and lie about IT. 16 plus 15 equals 34 minus 3, which is then 31, and that would be 30. 31 sequential after thermometer rates to cover that up. And try to extort you for it and rarefy you from your capability. That's chemical assault, that's biological weapons, ecological warfare, eco warfare, biological warfare, assault with unconventional munitions intended not to cause visible scarring. But now let's go and let's prove something here. More. This will adjudicate a fact, accumulating to establish knowing and intent. This here again is from zoology. Principles of integrated principles of zoology, 15th edition, part 2. Continuity and evolution of animal life. Here it says, the sexual reproductive process is controlled by hormones, which is regulated by the environmental cues, such as food intake, seasonal change in photoperiod, rainfall and temperature, and by social cues. A region within the forebrain called the hypothalamus regulates the release of anterior pituitary gland hormones, some of which stimulate tissues of the gonads. Neural secretions and pituitary gland are described in chapter 34. The hormonal system controls development of the gonads, accessory sex structures, and secondary sexual characteristics, as well as timing of reproduction, which goes in the use of speed. So here we can establish from this is from Brain Theory book, Ken Ashwell, that the tympanic nerve here is also connected to the ophthalmic artery and the ciliary ganglion, connected to the superior colliculus of the midbrain, which here we can establish further from the brain book by Ken Ashwell. The superior colliculus is connected to the thalamus, and here further then the thalamus to the hypothalamus, and here that's from Gray's Anatomy, Henry Gray, 1974, and says the number and extent of convulsions as well as the body of, or the depth of intervening sulci appear to bear a close relationship to intellectual power of the individual and sphincter muscle of the pupil. Well, here's the pupil here, there's the tympanic nerve, and of course sulci, the depth of the sulci may be in relation to dialectics like high blood pressure, of course, so here, according to Ruggiero's brain theory, the hypothalamus regulates thirst, hunger, body temperature, and emotion. And here we can show that emotion is the anterior cingulate in the orbital cortex. Now, of course, when we say timing, it goes to do with revigoration, constantly recurrent inhibition. In order to produce recurrent inhibition, you would same thing over and over again. It's recurrent. It recurs. So here we can show when motor neurons stimulate a Renshaw cell, a spinal inhibition interneuron that inhibits an inhibitory synapse potential by producing glycine and or aminoburic acid. And it produces constant output even in absence of input. So they then know that the output, whatever they put in there, if they go away after producing enough time and producing the recurrent, it continues to reproduce itself. Produces constant output even in the absence of input. The output is not outside the body, it's in the brain and firing, because neuron membrane is in repetitive discharge of membrane above capacity threshold. Above capacity threshold is like high blood pressure. And of course, producing constant output, even in the absence of input, is assisted by choosing mass cognitive beacons like brand, genetics, that's malicious intent, that's ecological assault, ecological warfare, biological warfare, where they tend to use unconventional weapons to not produce visible scarring. So back here again, it says the hormonal system, development of the gonads and accessory sexual structures like the XY, because here we had angiotension gene. So there's no gene, then there's no gene here in oncogene that's would sanctify this code on cos SNE. And of course then you would get NOx, no X, so there's no oxygen. If you're reducing the oxygen, no X, annoy, so annoy with NOx. That's of course if you force somebody to walk down the road, even though you never did anything in the industry, and that person did everything in the industry, and you expect from predispositional adjudicated fact of the cumulative number of people arrested or charged with panhandling, that people are going to stand near a corner and ask for money, and you're going to annoy them with NOx, which is the code term for nitrous oxide. That's the real deadly miasma. That it was proven by Rutherford's bell jar experiment, that according to McGraw-Hill's Introduction to Chemistry, 1974. Here we can establish from the brain book Ken Ashwell the circles of Willis, like what you talking about, Willis. The anterior communicating artery, posterior communicating artery, mid-cerebral artery, posterior artery, superior artery, basal artery, the anterior inferior cerebral artery, cerebral artery right there. So that would be the sulci, which are these impressions here. This is at the base of the midbrain. So high blood pressure would then cause adaptations, dilations on sulci. And here, through pia mater, dura mater, which are endocrines of the sphenoid superior sagittal sinus and the sphenoid sinus, which is the endocrine system, or actually exocrine system, excuse me, which is right here. A type of gland that releases secretion through a duct, contrasts with the endocrine with sphenoid sinus through the nasals, and endocrine, which is here, refers to a gland that is without a duct that releases productivity directly into the blood nymph. So, establishing the tympanic here to the ciliary, the sphincter muscle, the long ciliary nerve here connecting all to this region here, the tegmental ganglions. We could show that what sounds very complicated is not really. It's endocrine. So if you make somebody angry enough with an inhibitor circuit, neural circuits, over and over again, recurrent inhibition circuits and reverberating, if they get angry enough, then they don't cry, right? Endocrine, that's easy, item sonus. And if they don't cry, then you don't purge. Same thing as urinating. It's like your eye urinating, getting rid of sodiums that build up. Which going this back to? Aldosterone, hormone that induces kidneys to reabsorb sodium and water to release potassium through increasing blood volume and pressure. So the reabsorbed sodium and water continues to circulate through the high blood pressure volume. Now, we'll see here, back to this integrated principles of zoology. 15th edition continues. Gonad steroids and the control of the ovaries of the females reverberate produce two kinds of steroid sex hormones, estrogens and progesterones. Get the item sonus, progesterone. Progesterone. There are three kinds of estrogens: estradiol, estrone, and estriol, of which estradiol is secreted in the highest amounts during reproductive cycles. Now, it doesn't take a genius to recognize the word stereo and IDs without the E, take the E out of to get steroids, for someone looking for muse, epiphany on steroid effects and polynomials, S plus T plus E plus R plus O plus I plus D, or actually separate it, I plus D plus S, on ways to assault steroids, or etymology of the word in the anticipatory nuisance of Marcus doctrine, steroids. So you can see here, they would then have to take this 5 out here to get steroids, and that would be in atomic code. There's 5B. That would then give the BE, as in the BE as T, the BEA, all the BE vigoration, EBT, BET network. Alright? So now here we would have the ID, so they use the stereos to stalk you after tampering with your IDs. And then, of course, if we put in bay tiers of ligase following the space here in 7, transferring that to N, that goes in here with the aldosterones, which we've already established, induces kidneys to reabsorb sodium after the end of crying, or the purging of the lacrimal canalicus here. An ampulla. There's stereo. Ampulla of lacrimal canalicus. And the lacrimal sac. That would, of course, create ophthalmias. Any sort of, trachiomas. Oh, I can't think of it right offhand right now. Conjunctivitis. 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 Alright, so we know that aldosterone, but we know within these industries here, these triangulations between all these inventors, stock market triangulations actually is what they would be, all triangulating stock market, stock portfolios. There used to be a star Aldonova, which there's a plus L plus D plus O, and an O of reversal on the apposition gate there, polynomials, algebraic vectors, that would then switch the multiple allele loci in the AND, A and D sequence, which combine these together. We're using the hysteresis looping invade ligase here to produce a different loci for the S, the T, the E, and the R, that when these loci are then subtracted equal 4, which is the last loci here, or ordinal order, now becomes 8. 4 from 8 is 4, which is, of course, now IUPAC table code BE. Beryllium, that's beryliosis, actually beryllium dust produced beryliosis, but that's again the BE there. And BE repeats. So now it said here, estroidal is secreted in the highest amount during reproductive cycles. Now it doesn't take a genius, an Einstein, Einstein, to recognize that a metathesis of decalation and a metathesis of estroidal equals one idle star. And then conveniently, when you're producing these ways, the multiple allele of the AND sequence produces these mathematical conjunctivities. 1 from 7 equals 6, these mathematical proofs. 2 plus 3 equals 5, that leaves the 8 and the 9, which then, and 4, which then is of BE. Then you can say A, and bring it on to the whole invigoration of mass hysteresis looping of the mark of the beast, all that stuff there.